السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Since this is the beginning of the winter holidays and our children and our youth are going to have 2 weeks away from school and away from education, for them is just a time of freedom, right? That the constraints of school and education and madrasa all fall, and so they have a period of time where they are completely free. What we need to ensure as parents is that this time is utilized to benefit them and to benefit our family units. Because as we know, a believer is never free. And a believer is never in a position where he or she can do everything they want or everything they like. There is always responsibility. And this is a very important lesson and teaching that we need to ensure our children take whilst they are young. That there is always responsibility and there are always duties to be fulfilled. And so if you have freedom or time away from certain responsibilities, that does not mean that all responsibilities fall. Because what would we be as human beings if we did not have any responsibility? And so we have responsibility first and foremost to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we have responsibility to our own selves, and responsibility to our family, and the responsibility to our community and society. And the more responsibilities we take on, the more beneficial we become to humanity. And if we become beneficial to our families and our communities and our society in general and our ummah, then we become beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam states that those who are most beloved to Allah are those who are most beneficial to the creation of Allah. And so we need to structure the time of our children so that this time is not just wasted in vain. And we have to realize that there is our children are targeted by the environment they are living in, and by shaitan, and by their own nafs. And they are very young to realize the consequences of being misled by these enemies that we have. And so it is our role as parents to nurture iman and nurture the sense of responsibility and nurture the qualities, the beloved qualities, so that our children can grow and become a means of benefit first and foremost to themselves and then to ourselves as parents. And we know the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you has been given responsibility, and each one will be questioned in relation to that responsibility. And so a few things we need to keep in mind. The first one is, and I always say this when there are a substantial amount of days in a break, is that fathers need to take time away from work. Because providing your family with material is not your only responsibility. That is actually the least of your responsibilities, because when you die, that ends. And Allah Azza wa Jal will not ask you, why didn't you provide your family with a 4-bedroom house when you were in need of one? Right? Why didn't you provide certain luxuries and nice things to your family members. And so this chase that we have for material is not going to make us successful, is not going to make us happy, is not going to make our children happy. And we are telling them through our behavior that money is much more important than anything else. And so this is the wrong attitude, because children learn from our behavior. It is not enough that to sit and tell them the story of Rasulullah ﷺ or tell them the story of Ibrahim and you think that they are going to take lessons from that. They learn from our behavior. And so if we give importance to our families, and that requires some sacrifice in terms of work, if we are able to, then they are going to understand that family is valued much more than work. And so fathers absolutely have to take time off. We cannot let our sisters deal with the children while we just continue with our normal lives. And if we cannot take time off, then ensure that you cut out from your leisure time and from your time with your friends and from your time outside of the home and spend it with your children. This is essential. And Rasulullah ﷺ says in a hadith that your family has a right on you. And so give everyone their due right. And so this is the first thing. Ensure that we are spending time at home. Secondly, and this is the most important aspect, is that salah has to be offered on time. For male children, if we can bring them to the masjid a couple of times a day, that would be good. Salatul Fajr and Salatul Isha. If we can come all together as a family to the masjid to offer at least one daily salah, then that would be good. This is teaching the children the importance of what? Of salah, and the importance of the masjid, which is the hub of our community. And it is the beacon of light and guidance. So this is number one. Salawat, we have to ensure that salah is performed on time. If a child is over 10 years old, they need to pray their salah on. There is no excuse. Fajr Ishraq is around 8 o'clock. And so there is no excuse. Salah has to be offered on time, preferably in jama'ah at the masjid. If we cannot, then in jama'ah at home. Teach them responsibility. This is number one. Number two, ensure that they are in a protected environment, away from sin, because they do not yet have the capability to, or the willpower to protect themselves. And so it is the responsibility of the parents to protect their children from not only sin, but environment where there is sin. So in family outings and things that we want to do, in order for them to have a good time, we have to ensure that it is an appropriate place. If they are outside of the home, we need to know who they are spending their time with, who their friends are. Have a relationship with the parents of their friends, so that you know where your child is going when he leaves or she leaves home. And this is perhaps for teenage children or young adults. There has to be a time where we sit together as a family, at least one meal a day, where we can have a conversation about the day, either how the day was spent or how the next day we want to spend the next day. And so there is this interaction where children feel appreciated and feel loved and they are heard. Extremely important. And if we can, once in a day we sit and we establish a small halaqah in our homes. And we remind ourselves time and time again of this, because this is important. Yes, we are living in a corrupt era where shaitan is working very hard, where sin and fulfillment of any type of desire is abundantly available. Whatever floats your boat, it's all out there. And so the way to protect ourselves is to create an environment of righteousness, an environment of iman. And that begins with recitation of the Quran. A half an hour short sitting without forcing, especially with children that are slightly older. If they do not wish to take part, then they do not take part. It is their loss. They can understand, and they understand. Okay? And you need to incentivize, right? Give them a reason, because they do not understand that we are doing this for akhirah and to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They understand the words and they can repeat the words, but they don't fully appreciate that. And so you need to what? To reward good behavior, to reward fulfilling responsibility. And so in that, we read Quran, certain ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that can be understood, that are simple in language and can be understood by our children, right? In relation to akhirah, in relation to Allah, in relation to following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also to get them to understand the importance of the moral values in Islam, especially kindness and compassion, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent rahmatul lil alameen, and Allah is ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And so these meanings have to be understood by our children, so they are adopted in their life. So kindness, compassion, truthfulness, to be truthful in all circumstances. And so we read stories in relation to these themes, and the sense of sacrifice, that you will gain more by giving to others than giving yourself. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice some of what you want for what other people need. And creating in our children this sense of sacrifice is very important, because without sacrifice you cannot reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Time that is spent in front of the television, in front of games, has to be minimized. We don't say don't do it. It's impossible to sort of say don't do it, especially in the winter holidays where there are many activities that you can do outdoors. But there are sport activities and things, visiting museums and things of this sort that are educational, enjoyable, and are just not just a waste of time. And so time spent with devices has to be limited. And teach your child that gratification comes after fulfilling a duty and a responsibility, right? That the first things that we have to do is responsibility. And then once we have done that, towards the end of the day, it can be for enjoyment. And so it shouldn't be that a child just wakes up in the morning and from the moment they open their eyes, they're doing everything they want until the time they go to bed. Because you are teaching that child the importance that gratification and having a good time is all that matters, which is not a reality. And if they grow up thinking that, then they are always in search of the next thing that's going to make them feel good, instead of being in search of the next responsibility that is going to give them worth. Because duty and responsibility is what gives a human being worth in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you are doing good. And this is, the responsibility is a teaching of our deen. Right? Our deen is not only about praying and doing dhikr and reciting Quran, but rather to leave your mark and this is why Rasulullah says that when a person dies, nothing goes with them except for what? Except for sadaqatun jariyah. Sadaqatun jariyah is what? An ongoing charity, something good that you have done that people are still benefiting from even after you pass away. Waladin salihin yad'u lah, a righteous child that makes dua for you. And ilmun yuntafa'u bih, a knowledge that you have left behind that people are benefiting from. And so benefiting people is at the core of our deen. And our children have to learn that they're not expected to do huge tasks, just very small tasks where they understand that they are working for the benefit of others, for the benefit of their siblings, for the benefit of their parents, for the benefit of their family or their friends or colleagues or relatives, and so on and so forth. And these are all things that we have heard and perhaps we think about at times ourselves, they're not rocket science. But it requires discipline from ourselves. And if we can't discipline ourselves, then we cannot expect our children to discipline themselves. Right? And this focus on material and focus on worldly education needs to be minimized. It should be given importance, but only the importance that is due. If you don't do that, your children will not benefit. You think you are giving them good education so that they have a good life, but they will grow and just be immersed in this worldly life and have no preparation for akhirah. And there will be a cause of pain for you in this world and in akhirah. When you are stood before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your judgment and your child says, well, my father only focused on education, worldly education. Or my father only focused on earning money and giving me good things in life and did not give me deen and did not give me. Rasulullah says that the best gift a parent can give to their children is good moral character. Because then they come out into the world and everybody loves them. We have a saying in our Moroccan culture, when you meet somebody that's nice, you make dua for their parents. You say, may Allah have mercy on the one who taught you, or on the one who educated you. And so that becomes an intercession for you in this world and in the hereafter. And if our children come out to the world and they are well behaved and are kind, compassionate, they have the sense of sacrifice, sense of responsibility, then they will have a good life. Regardless of how much they earn and the material that they will have a good life. Because people around them will love them and respect them. And so make your children witnesses for you and not witnesses against you on the day of Qiyamah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all understanding and the ability to work accordingly. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu.